Alright, finally Xilonen is going to be back pretty soon. It's been a while. Yeah, she is absolutely, I just have to say it, an amazing character that I know many of you are gonna be trying to pull for her. Her official rerun banner for 4-star is basically confirmed. Now between the decision among Xilonen or Venti is definitely gonna be easy for you guys, but the fact that future characters are gonna be coming back as well is something that we'll be considering. Marissa and Ian-san is basically going to be on the first phase, which many of us are excited. So if you're planning to swipe for pooling, then don't forget to check out Loot Bar. If you know me, I've been recommending you guys Loot Bar before, since you can always save almost a 23% on all of your top-ups, with over 100,000 orders and so many good reviews at this point. And by the way, this also applies to PS5 and Xbox user who can place orders through Loot Bar. You can be sure that Loot Bar is trustworthy. Here you can see my order receipts of all of my top-ups that I have done. So guys, be sure to check out Loot Bar through the link in my description, as it can be a great way for you to save your money, especially if you are topping up a large amount. So first off, Xilonen, yeah, I don't think there are many things that I have to talk about her specifically, because we already know how good of a character Xilonen already is in terms of how much of a buff she has access to, in terms of resistant shred that she's going to be giving to your team, as well as the artifact set that is made for her to be used very well, and more of the fact that she's a character that technically works in most of your team comps nowadays just makes her an absolutely amazing character for most of the account, regardless of the situation you are in. Now before, we've already talked quite a lot about the similarity between Xilonen and Kazuha, and it is something for you guys to consider because these two characters are technically quite similar to each other. The main difference between the two is that Kazuha, first of all, is actually a lot harder for you to use, because swirling the right element for Kazuha is something that you need to work on your rotations. But what Kazuha is better than Xilonen at is he has the ability to group, as well as has better ability to shred your enemy's shield if you do happen to find enemies within the abyss, for example, that has very tanky shield. Kazuha is a very good character at that. But what Xilonen is more better than Kazuha right now is the fact that many Natlan characters at this point in time does benefit quite a lot from Xilonen herself. So if you're more toward the current meta where you're using a lot of Natlan DPS character, especially Mavuika, who benefits a lot from Xilonen, then obviously if you already have Kazuha, Xilonen technically will also do you very good. Other than that, yeah, even if you already have Kazuha, Xilonen and Kazuha can be in different teams. So if you do have the chance to pull for Xilonen, yeah, it's a very good thing for you to do. Now pulling for Xilonen is one thing, but I know that many of you already technically has her on your account and is wondering whether or not you should be investing more into Xilonen herself, and that is going to be between her signature weapon as well as her constellation. Now, a C1 constellation doesn't technically help you much, and if you're going to be investing into Xilonen's constellation, you're probably going to be better off aiming to her C2 anyway. C2 investment toward a character is generally going to be more heavy than you going for a weapon. Now basically what her weapon is going to be providing you is going to be a 25.6% elemental damage increase to your team, which is pretty decent. It's not just going to be your on-field character, but for your whole team as well. So any sub DPS character you have on your team is going to get a pretty nice buff. Though for the look of it, Xilonen already have a very decent free-to-play options that you can already use, especially Favonia's sword, which actually does help her in terms of energy regen. If you do have the ability to get her all the way to C2 while using the Favonia's sword, overall a C2 Xilonen is still going to be more worth it in the long term, as who knows, maybe in the future Hoyoverse is going to be releasing even more powerful free-to-play support sword options that Xilonen can potentially use, so you can also make use of that. But obviously, again, a constellation C2 Xilonen is still going to be heavier than a weapon unless you get quite lucky, which I do wish you good luck if you are going for it. Other than that, we have Venti. Honestly, yeah, I guess Hoyoverse just give him a rerun because he hasn't got a rerun in a bit of a time. Yeah, if you're looking into the meta, it's like he's never going to be used again unless we have any kind of content that requires insane amount of crowd control, but we already have decent character with crowd control nowadays, and many sub DPS character these times don't even require requires you crowd control, and they are already deleting enemies. So if you really like Venti, I really wish you good luck pulling for him, because we're going to be moving on to the more important section, which is the 4-star character on the banner. Now this time we have Beidou, Yanfei and Farzan, which are interesting. However, I do just have to give it straight up. Beidou and Yanfei is a preference character. Now obviously if you do have more of their constellation, they will perform. Yanfei has the ability to do pretty decent number the more constellation you have access to her. She is a Pyro Catalyst that's rather easy and fun for you to use, but in terms of the meta, obviously she is not very anywhere near. Now Beidou, she hasn't been used for quite some times, and less teams nowadays are technically using Beidou's a lot. However, that being said, Beidou value is still there, especially if you do have more of a constellation. So if you really want to use Beidou, you can still use her. But in terms of team building nowadays, characters such as Auron is more expected to be using in a team, especially with Natlin character and Cinder City buff, which is a very valuable thing. So the most valuable character on the banner for 4-star is going to be Farzan. Now I say valuable is just comparing to the other characters, because Farzan is again a niche support character, so her value technically depends on your team usage. If you're using an Nemo team, Farzan is absolutely amazing. I do love her character design. Yeah, Farzan has a fun way of using a DPS Farzan to do damage as well, which is really nice. But for Anemo buffing, Farzan is still going to be the best, and probably going to be the best Anemo support for a very long time. But unfortunately, we do not have many Anemo DPS character that can make use of her at this point in time. Honestly speaking, the main character is the Xiao, and then other than that, we did have quite a number of 5-star Anemo character release, but still they don't use Farzan a lot on their team, which is kind of sad, because I love the ability to be able to use more Farzan. Though I wouldn't really be expecting that many of you will pull on this banner just to try and get Farzan, and most likely you're just going to be pulling for Xilonen and hopefully get more Farzan constellation in the go. So I really wish you good luck on that. Now coming up next are the weapon banner. Now the weapon banner this time around is decent. The patrol song is for Xilonen. If you're trying to get that specifically, it comes right next to the elegy, which is technically still one of, if not the best support bow or supportive weapon overall we have in the entire game. Now we use quite a number of bow supporter character on our team, especially characters such as Xilonen. Having access to the elegy does help her a lot with energy regen. Other than that, with the buff that its passive is giving, so if you're pulling on this banner, you do lose to the elegy. That is actually pretty decent, which will also requires you to think more about whether or not you should try to get more of Xilonen constellation and risk getting the 4-star character, or try to get her weapon. But if you do lose this time around, the rate is technically better than if you you lose more to the 4-star character that you don't need on the Xilonen banner that you have at this point. So yeah, do consider that before you go pulling, because other than that, the 4-star weapon, they're technically giving you the whole Favonius series at this point, which is rather nice. And other than that, you have the sack sword, and that is good. Now the bell, it is one of the worst weapon in the game, but unless you're getting too many bells within the weapon banner pool, I will say that you will have a better chance of getting the Favonius and the sack sword weapon series more than you do with the bell. So overall, as I've mentioned, the weapon banner is nice, but obviously don't get too tempted for you to pull a lot of pulls onto the weapon banner, because do consider the future characters that are coming as well. And this is why usually technically is the most important part of the video, because this is where you look more toward the future in terms of your investment into your account. Obviously, we don't have any kind of confirmation what rerun that we're going to be having in the next patch. Yes, yet we'll know pretty soon, but at this point, the rumors more toward about it is going to be characters such as Navia, Raiden, and Kinich. So looking at that, yeah, I'm going to have obviously more dedicated video talking about these characters, but on the surface, these characters are more or less just preference character, because again, they are DPS character, and always DPS character are more toward your preference side. Now that being said, the characters that are returning, if they do, is rather nice because Navia and Kinish are still one of the top DPS character in the game. Raiden has fallen behind quite a bit, but if we already got like a C6 Shovels recently, the Raiden Shogun Overload team is still doing pretty nice if she does come back. But other than that, the more important thing is going to be the new character, which is going to be Escoffier. Now obviously I'm going to have a more dedicated toward Escoffier and Xilonen talking because these characters technically do work on the same team, and you guys might be wondering whether or not how good they actually perform on those kind of teams. But Escoffier is definitely looking up to be a very nice character. So if you do like Escoffier as a character and you've already put a lot of pulls onto Xilonen, you might not be able to have enough pulls once Escoffier comes. But while Xilonen is also on a rerun, and there's a question of how long she's going to be back after her rerun, which does make sense for many of us to be pulling for Xilonen still at this point. Escoffier, she might have a rerun quite soon after her first initial release, so that's going to be something that you want to consider as well. And other than that, the question of Skirk going to be coming after the 5.6 patch, which is 5.7, is going to be a consideration on our part as well. Now there are still a bit of time if that does happen, because yeah, there's at least a 7-week away, so technically speaking you guys should be able to have rather enough for a single copy of Skirk. But for those of you who love Skirk as a character and will decide to try and pull more of her either constellation or her weapons, you will still have to consider whether or not you should be pulling more at this point, or you know, save a lot of primo gems to actually get a full invested Skirk whenever she comes. So we don't really have too much information on Skirk at this point, so we can't really say too much, but it is something that you guys want to take note of and think about your investment before you actually do pull on the banner that are coming. Guys, I think that's everything I have to say regarding the banner at this point in time. I hope that the video have been helpful to you. If you do have any questions, leave it down in the comment section and I or some other lovely Genshin player will get to you there. If you're new to the channel, guys, don't forget to subscribe. Do not miss out on my future Genshin videos. With that, I wish you a super day and I'll catch you on my next video.